So welcome again to our webinar. I'm really happy to have you all here today. And let's get started. For this webinar, we are joining forces with other organizations around the globe, working to expand public participation in governance. I want to thank our partners who were also working with us for more than a year to develop the work and tools we will be presenting today to you. Today, you'll be hearing from Sarah Kennedy, who will kindly present on behalf of Alessandro, Bellantoni from OGP, who were not able to be here today. And you also hear from Khadim Gueye from IOPD Africa, Maria Luiza Freire from Ciudadanía Inteligente, Melina Mohoric from MOSAIC, Silvania Utami from Kota, and Maria Lucien from People Powered. And I'm Amanda Luz, Programs Director at People Powered, and I'll be moderating the event today. Welcome you all. So here's a quick look at what we will cover today. We'll start by exploring why mainstream participation is not just a technical fix, but a real pathway to long-term systemic change and democratic renewal. Then we will dive into some of the latest research, global case studies, and practical tools that can help embed participation into governance, not just as a project, but as a practice. We are going to talk a lot about this. Next, we will hear from experts about what it takes for government reformers and advocates to actually move this work forward. Some strategies on how to plan for the change, to make the case, and sustain momentum. And we'll follow up that with a Q&A session where I will take your questions live. Some of you already sent your questions during your registration. You can also send in the chat. And for those who want to keep the conversation going, even a little bit after the event, we will close with some breakout rooms that are optional, where you can engage directly with our speakers in different rooms. So stay with us. We've got a lot of content and inspiration coming your way. I hope you enjoy. If you haven't, I see more people are joining us. So if you haven't had the chance to introduce yourself yet, let's hear from you in the chat. Share with us where are you joining us from and what would you like to hear more about today? Some of you already shared, like I said, some questions, and we will answer them at the end. But please send more questions and thoughts throughout this event. This is a space for all of us to also connect and share a little bit of our experience and knowledge. So let me see, we have more people coming from France, South Africa. I see a CDA, our accelerator participant. I'm glad to have you all. Hi, Augie from Alma Cívica in Paraguay, Democracia in Argentina. We see a lot of people-powered members. Bruno from São Paulo, Brazil, where I'm based. New York, Scotland. All right, Canada. Kara from Canada, looking forward to hearing more about developing trust in government. Very important. We're going to talk about this definitely. Hola from Mexico. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm really happy to have you all here. So last year, just a little bit of context, last year we hosted a conversation on why mainstreaming participation matters. And we heard from many of you in the audience and partners about the importance of different actors working together to make it happen. Government, civil society, funders, practitioners. This is a collective effort. So this year, we are taking that conversation a step further. We have been listening, learning, and building together with partners around the world. And today, we are going to share what's been developed since then. So new research, insights, new tools, and emerging strategies that show how participation is not only possible at scale, but it is already happening. So before we dive into the presentations, let's take a minute to ground ourselves in what we actually mean when we say mainstream participation, especially for those who are not familiar with this term yet. So let's start with this big picture. The goal of all of this work is to strengthen democracy by building trust, advancing equity, and supporting civic leadership. Around the world, we have seen that public participation can be a powerful way to get there. So when people have a say in the decisions that affect their lives, it builds stronger connections between governments and communities, and it leads to better, more inclusive outcomes. This is a work that over the past 2 decades, we have seen this wave of innovation from participatory budgeting to cities assemblies and more. And these efforts have shown what's possible when people are brought into governance in more meaningful ways. But now we are asking, what's next? How do we move from isolated experiments here and there to making participation a core pillar of how government works? So that's what we mean by mainstream participation, and that's what we are going to talk more about today. So mainstream participation is not just about improving engagement, it's about building the foundation for long-term, resilient democracy. It helps us, for example, to respond to some of the challenges that we have been facing in many of our countries. For example, closing civic spaces, and it helps by creating formal, protected pathways for public involvement. Mainstream participation also helps renew trust and reshape the narrative around democracy, not as something that is broken, but something that can evolve through shared power. And it also strengthens governance that's truly people-centered. So where participation isn't just occasional, but built into how decisions are made. That's the case we are making today. So when we talk about mainstream participation, we mean making it a stable, reliable part of how governments work, not just a one-off, one-time innovation. It also means shifting from isolated efforts to sustained rights and opportunities for people to participate, from short-term or also inconsistent practices to ones that are fit for purpose, inclusive, and built into structures across sectors and levels, and from participation that's just symbolic to participation that is actually truly connected to decisions with real outcomes and also accountability. So this is how we move. We propose that we move from democratic innovation to democratic infrastructure. So now I just introduced a little bit about the why. Now it's time to explore the how. So over the last year, researchers and partners that are also members at People Powered from around the world, they have been documenting real efforts to mainstream participation. We will hear examples today from local innovation to national legal frameworks, all working toward the shift from participation as a moment to participation as a system. So let's see the strategies that we can all build on. First, I'd like to invite Melina from MOSAIC with a case from Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is a context where political fragmentation and post-conflict realities can make institutional change difficult. Also, I'm sure Melina will explain more about real breakthroughs in public participation that we've seen there. So Melina, can you walk us through how participation is being built and sustained in Bosnia and Herzegovina and what that means for mainstreaming in this kind of challenging democratic setting?
Thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today. As Amanda introduced me, I'm Melina, and I'm checking in from Croatia, an organization called MOSAIC. I will be introducing today the research that we have done as part of this project, and particularly focusing on the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, specifically the city of Mostar. Which is really an interesting case study. But to begin with, I would like to share a couple of contextual facts. So first of all, what needs to be said and understood is that in Eastern Europe, deliberative democratic processes such as citizens' assemblies that we're going to deal with and hear more about with regards to Mostar are still relatively rare. There have been some civic petitions, budget consultations here and there, but truly structured citizen deliberation is not really a norm. And that is also true for Bosnia and Herzegovina, a country with one of the most complex governance systems in Europe. Maybe some of you know, but it's made of two entities, the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina and Republika Srpska, and also is further divided in some smaller organizational units. So it's quite complicated. And on top of that, there is an ethnically based power sharing arrangement, which also slows down and complicates governance procedures and also significantly affects public trust. This particularly applies to the city of Mostar in the south of the country, which was one of the cities hit hardest during the war, and it's ethnically divided still. What's interesting and actually very, maybe it's even sad to hear, but from 2008 to 2020, which means 12 full years, the city of Mostar didn't have local elections. Main political parties couldn't agree on how constituencies should be organized, and basically democracy was on hold. What resulted from that is that a citizen from the city filed a lawsuit against the country due to the absence of local elections, and the European Court of Human Rights ruled in favor of the citizen, declaring the situation unconstitutional, which ultimately led to the first local elections because of the pressure and the diplomatic efforts also from the European community. But what also initiated positive change prior to this lawsuit was actually the civil society's action initiated by the local democracy agency in 2016. This agency, together with a group of young people, organized actually a mock campaign called Elect Mostar, which was held when regular local elections were supposed to be held. They actually wanted to highlight how absurd it was that citizens couldn't vote. And their advocacy drew attention from the international community, particularly the Council of Europe, which responded by creating a reflection group for the city. And that was basically groundwork for two major initiatives or projects that were focused on introducing citizens' assemblies as innovative democratic participation tool. So there were two projects or initiatives. As part of those initiatives, two citizens' assemblies were organized in Mostar and also one in another country, so in another city, which belongs to a different entity than the city of Mostar. That was very important to build a unified approach to local governance. So basically, this effort was very valuable because it ensured ethnic and social diversity to be brought together. And also the topic selection was extremely participatory. Suggestions for the topic came from citizens, from civil society, academia, city council members, and all of that was driven by local civil society, who played a crucial role both in facilitation, in community outreach, and also trust building among citizens. Civil society has been very active, not just in this specific cases, but also in previous efforts in coalition building with local authorities by signing several mutual agreements on cooperation. Can you please go to the next slide? Here you can see a couple of images from both this youth campaign Elect Mostar, which was held prior to citizens' assemblies, and a couple of images from citizens' assemblies that were really, citizens were really responsive, because the topic itself was basically chosen by the members of the Citizens' Assembly. Next slide, please. So what we actually learned from this example, first of all, the activities that were undertaken to support the mainstreaming of citizens' assemblies were highly based on strengthening skills and understanding of key stakeholders through different activities, such as organized workshops and trainings that connected local officials, civil society, public company representatives, associations of municipalities. There were also peer-to-peer exchanges that were held together with European partners to share knowledge, previous experience. And also a platform of exchange on open government was built, and around 23 municipalities were invited actually to share and to build capacities. Grounds for future cooperation was also set through a first ever joint meeting of the two associations of municipalities that exist in the country, which was very important to promote unified acting in strengthening local governments. In terms of legal and procedural foundations for continued use of citizens' assemblies that were established included, for example, Memorandum of Cooperation with the Council of Europe, setting up a rule book for citizens' assemblies, an official website of citizens' assemblies, and further cooperation that continued on the implementation of action plans that were developed as part of the processes. Also, what has to be emphasized is that Bosnia and Herzegovina is a member state of the Council of Europe since 2002. It also ratified the European Charter of Local Self-Government, which highly promotes citizen participation and citizen inclusion in local decision-making. And also, as part of these processes and initiatives, applications for the Open Government Partnership Local Program were supported. We also have to be aware of the real challenges. First of all, citizens' assemblies in Bosnia and Herzegovina are not institutionalized yet, but there is no law or strict regulation that requires these processes to continue, which of course risks them, as Amanda said, being one-off experiments. What we also noticed is lack of time and resources to manage citizen participation, because it was just an additional work for people in local government that also needs to be improved and strengthened. Increasing trust among citizens is something that also requires further efforts, but for example, including citizens in making decisions about the topic at the early stage of development was an important way of building trust. And finally, this example heavily relied on external support of the international community, specifically the Council of Europe, which was very important, of course, for starting this innovation. For long-term sustainability, of course, what needs to be built is more strong local ownership and political will. But still, we think that in this highly complex context, these kind of efforts and cooperation between the country and the international community, which is an ongoing, brought us to this interesting example and advancements in citizen participation. That would be all. I think we can move forward. Thank you all.
Thank you, Melina. I appreciate what you shared and how it's complex in different political environments. Institutionalization is something that we need also to advocate for, but it's possible to develop some structured participation and start to build this trust. But as you've pointed out, without institutional support and strong local capacity, these innovations can remain fragile. So that brings us to the next speaker in Latin America. In Latin America, we have seen different models of scaling and embedding participation into governance with different successes and challenges as well. But Maria Luiza, can you walk us through one of these cases and share what the region is learning and teaching us about turning democratic experiments into lasting change?
I sure can. Thank you very much, Amanda. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to start by welcoming my fellow colleagues to this debate and also who are watching us throughout this presentation. To start answering your question, Amanda, I think it's important to begin by stating that Latin America has seen a clear trend toward integrating PDD mechanisms or participatory and deliberative democracy mechanisms into governance structures with varying degrees, different degrees of success across the region. Most countries had already PDD mechanisms integrated into their constitutions after long dictatorship, authoritarian periods, especially after what we call the progressive pink wave, and countries like Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, and many others have since then moved forward from isolated democratic experiments to more institutionalized initiatives. The region has also embraced in recent years digital innovations for fostering participation and trying to increase accessibility for more diverse populations. And although I am originally from Brazil, the research has taken us to very interesting cases. And today, specifically, I'd like to introduce to you a democratic innovation that comes from Colombia and that demonstrates how deliberative mechanisms can be integrated into urban governance. So, Bogota, Colombia's capital, stood out because of its itinerant citizens' assembly, which was launched in 2020 by the city council through its public innovation lab called Demo Lab. What makes this initiative particularly interesting is that instead of being fixed in one location, the assembly moves throughout the city, bringing deliberation directly to the community. So the government, the institution goes directly to the citizens. Also, the assembly operates through civic sortation, ensuring broad, diverse demographic representation, trying to address urban challenges, including territorial planning, mobility, security, environmental concerns, and many others. If you can pass to the next slide, please. So three or four that have been critical to state the Assembly's success. I think that first and foremost, strong institutional support. I think something that's going to go through all the presentations, but the Assembly operates as part of an open parliament agenda with multi-stakeholder collaboration between government institutions and civil society organizations like Instituto de Política Abierta, Corona Foundation, which are also part of People Power's members, creating this resilient framework, this resilient support structure. Second, dedicated resources. The Assembly has secured an annual budget that ensures its financial stability while it's providing technical collaboration with the City Council. Third, very important, and I think this is an important lesson, is continuity and evolution. The Assembly has been held 3 times since 2020, but with each cycle builds on from previous work. This mechanism ensures that 15 to 30% of the members continue from one assembly to the next, giving it continuity based on the previous work that they've done. And finally, I think something that has been introducing throughout PDD mechanisms in Latin America is digital innovation. Last year, Carla Bezerra also presented Brasil Participativo, which is a digital participation platform. And I think this is becoming a trend because since 2021, the Assembly has implemented its digital strategy aiming to increase accessibility, fostering participation, especially among younger citizens. Next slide, please. So some of the results that I think that are very important to demonstrate how the Assembly has influence with policy over the cycles. The first Assembly had over 100 participants that proposed 34 solutions. The second Assembly in 2021 involved over 60 people that generated more than 1,000 recommendations for Bogota's 20-year territorial planning plan. The third Assembly has brought together over 100 participants, and after going through all the cycles, has developed this vision for Bogota in the long term. It's a 20-year plan. And these recommendations that were generated directly influenced on the city's territorial planning plan. Next slide, please. Some key learnings and also valuable lessons that I think they're important to state are first, that scaling requires purpose and political will. I think this is one of the challenges we have to address. The assembly has evolved from an experimental initiative to a standard practice because of explicit political support. Second, effective deliberation needs structure and needs resources. Success has come from secure budgeting, professional facilitation, participants training, transparent selection, and a clear pathway for recommendations to reach decision makers, or we can call it advocacy or incidence mechanisms. Third, mainstreaming takes time and iteration. This hasn't been an overnight success, but it is the result of improvement and continuous improvement and evolving across 3 assemblies over the 4 years, and now they are preparing for their 4th one. I think the conditions have been created to increase also trust and accountability between citizens and city government, establishing this channel in which citizens can shape urban planning decisions, ensuring inclusiveness, and allowing also the participation through sortition of people from all parts of the city, including the most vulnerable sectors. Next slide, please. Lastly, the path forward, or what challenges are ahead. As Melina mentioned earlier in her presentation, the assemblies were based on pre-existing participatory legislation in Colombian law, but it's not mainstream already as it's not already mainstream in municipal mechanisms. These assemblies, they are preparing for its 4th iteration, and will focus now specifically on institutionalizing the citizens' assemblies mechanisms within the regulation, the local regulation. This is aiming to ensure that these assemblies are sustainable beyond the changes throughout political administration. And, well, the challenges that remain include sustaining support, ensuring that the implementation of the recommendations are seen through, balancing the expertise that they have with inclusive participation, always with multi-stakeholder collaboration. And I think that one key importance of the assembly, the itinerant assembly, is that it offers also a promising model for mainstreaming deliberative democracy in contexts that are marked by social inequality and historical divisions, as it is in Colombia history, but not only. Many other countries in Latin America have faced and still face those challenges, authoritarian regimes or authoritarian governments. And that is why it is very important to showcase this model as an important progress towards PDD mainstreaming, because it can be also reapplied, as we have seen also in different other contexts. And it's very interesting. Thank you very much. That would be it. Sorry for the overtime.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Maria Luisa. I really appreciate that you shared highlights, the complexity of institutionalized participation. Like you said, the importance of political will, continuity, and clear structures for implementation. I want to welcome everybody to send your questions in the chat. I know that there's a lot of people in this event and also in the LinkedIn event live stream. Thank you for joining. I think there's a lot of interest on mainstream participation as a theme, and this is an evolving discussion. Please send your questions and we can address them at the end. So now I want to turn our conversations. Oh, and before I leave, because I see some questions too, all of this research, it's embedded, and we did this research to be used in the tools and the research links that we are going to share today. So please, the slides are going to be shared with you as well, but please stay on, because we're going to share the resources with you for your use and guidance as well. So now I want to turn to a country, Senegal, that has over 2 decades of experience with these very questions that Maria Luisa brought, and Senegal is a leader in scaling up participation. Khadim, can you walk us through how the country approached this institutionalizing journey and what lessons We can learn about making participation last, being, high quality and fit for purpose, etc., especially in changing political and funding environments.
Okay, thank you. Do you hear me? Okay, thank you. So my name is Khadim and I'm project manager from IOPD Africa.
Sorry, Khadim, I think we cannot hear you very well now. Can you try again?
What about now?
Okay, it's better now.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, my name is Khadim and I'm project manager at IOPD Africa, and today I'm going to present the case of mainstreaming participation in Senegal and focusing on participatory budgeting. So before starting, maybe I would like to define what participatory budgeting is about in the context of Senegal. So it's a process by which community take part in the debate on public policies and decide on the public resources that are available and or are involved in the decision concerning their allocation and also ensure the following. So once the participatory budgeting approach has been adopted by the local council, there will be 7 steps. The first one is the awareness raising for the mayor of the municipal council, so that they accept to implement participatory budgeting. The second phase will be the organization of community forums at local level. It can be neighborhoods, village, zones. And the third step is the zone delegates, meaning that for every neighborhood, there will be a delegate that gather all the needs of the neighborhoods and come to the delegates meeting or representatives meetings. And once they have all the needs gathered, so they will go to the municipality or regional forum. And it's during this forum that they will vote on the budget and implement the budget. And the last step will be the monitoring of and assessment of what have been done during the process. So in terms of context, mainstreaming of participatory practices in Senegal began with the political shift in 2000 with the election of the Democratic Party. During this period, politicians came with new ideas about participation, and Senegal embarked on a progressive process of appropriating participatory budgeting as a lever for local governance. So 2 first pilot experiences were implemented in 2 municipalities, and a third municipality came just after with a financement coming from the diaspora. And after those 3 municipalities experimented the participatory budgeting, it was shared. At that time, they didn't even know the name participatory budgeting, but they just share it during the global urban governance campaign by UN Habitat. And during this period, they met people from Porto Alegre who were part of the audience when they shared it. And those people said that what you are doing is actually participatory budgeting. And this is during this forum that they knew the name. And after that, during the World Urban Forum, representatives from Senegal have signed a memorandum which led to the development of the first participatory budgeting guide for Africa, for Francophone Africa in 2007. And in the same spirit, the government of Senegal have launched the National Local Development Program. And in this program, they planned to implement participatory budgeting in 28 municipalities in the first phase. And as they saw that it was an efficient practice to involve populations, they decided to go to the second phase, in which they implemented in more than 100 municipalities. And the country also innovated by introducing some specific forms of PB, meaning PB that are focusing on sectors, PB that are focusing on gender, on climate, on young people or people with disability. And also another point of context is the membership of Senegal at in the Open Government Partnership, the OGP, in 2018, which reinforced this desire to go for more openness and participation, and even with having a commitment to institutionalize participatory budgeting at national level, and it's still ongoing. Yes, we can go to the next one. Next slide. Yes, as part of the key values and strategic actions that were carried out in the country to give more value to participation, there were a series of training that were done for ministries, for local elected officials, for administrative offices, authorities, and for the civil society. And it was very important to do it for the local elected official and the administrative authorities, because most of them were reluctant to the practices, to the participation practices, the participatory budgeting. Because when we said participatory budgeting for them, it meant less power for the authorities, more power for the citizen. That's how they understood it first. So this is why it was important to make trainings for all these categories of actors. And after that, there were the production of educational materials, such as methodological guides to support the facilitators implement the process of participatory budgeting. So there were training that were just focused on the facilitators, those who will help the municipal councils implement participatory budgeting. Another key value was also the awareness raising among the population by the civil society to help them better understand their role in the management of local affairs. Another key point was also the signing of the participation charter and the Charter of Participation and Right to City that was aiming at define the rules regarding the responsibilities of authorities, but also to promote the rights and the duties of citizens. So the charter was adopted by all municipalities in Senegal and translated into 7 languages. And also the Local Leadership Excellence Award were also a key point, because it distinguished the best practices that we have noticed in the country. And there is one category focusing on participation and citizen engagement. So in this category, the best practices that were done in terms of participation was distinguished, and they received an award. And lastly, one key value was also a strong support by the government bodies, meaning that for every guide or for every educational material on participatory budgeting that was developed, there is a body from the government that helped us in developing it, and that also prefaced it. If I take, for example, the PB gender guide, the gender PB guide, the Ministry of Women, Family, and Gender played a key role in developing it, and they helped also in prefacing it. Yeah, as you can see, these are an example of participatory budgeting implementation in Senegal. As I was saying, you can see four steps. The first one is in the neighborhood, the zonal forum. The second one is the meeting of the delegates. The third one, the meeting of the municipal council with the delegate to validate all the needs that have been collected and prioritized. And the fourth one, you can see the vote of the municipal budget. Please go to the next. Yes, as for the impact on municipalities and communities, what we have not is that there were a strong trust between elected officials and citizens, as the citizens were involved throughout the process with projects stemming from their diagnostics and the needs that they have, the needs that they had, and also it helped enhance the access to information. Another result and impact that we have noticed is the better consideration of the needs of vulnerable groups through initiatives like Gueye. What they call Gueye is Collectivité Locale Amis des Enfants, which means children-friendly municipalities. There are also municipal council for young people with participatory budgeting, increasing targets, sectors that affect this group. We can have some example in education, where For example, the mayor, through participatory budgeting, have gifted bicycles to students that live in faraway places to help them stay at school. You can also have some example like the playground constructions. For women also, there are some infrastructure that were done, like maternity and hospital that are close to their house, so that they can have better access to health. And also a key point was the improved circulation of budgetary information through the mechanisms such as public hearing and citizen forum. And as for the challenge and learning now, what we have learned is that mainstreaming requires ownership by both municipalities and citizens. So if you only in the process, if you only have the municipality involved and not the citizen, you will not have good forums. You will not have the specific needs of the people. And if you have citizens that are involved and not the municipality also, the project or the process will not be done properly. Mainstreaming requires also a robust monitoring system. And in the case of Senegal, there were some committees that were composed by members of the municipal council, but also members of the civil society and also citizens. As for the challenge, we have unequal access to information. In some processes, some forum lacked efficiency because there were people who couldn't attend because they live in faraway places, and they didn't receive the information that there will be a forum that day or this day. And another challenge is also the shift in municipal teams. For example, if a new mayor comes and they do not know about participatory budgeting, in some cases, the processes are discontinued. And the last challenge that we have are the limited resources and local capacities. Yes, because we can find in some municipalities, mainly the municipalities in rural areas, in which they lack local human resources capacities, and this caused the processes to be discontinued once the partner left or once there is no more resources. So you can go to the next so that I finish. Yeah, so it's over. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Khadim. That's fantastic. Senegal showing how national policy and civil society organization can scale participation, but also sustaining. It takes real, like you said, ownership locally and sustained political commitment. Thanks for sharing those thoughts and insights from the research. I want to share with everybody just a reminder that we are going to have Q&A, and then after the Q&A, we also have some breakout rooms, and then you can interact directly with speakers. I see lots of good questions directed specifically to speakers, and we can continue this conversation as well. Now I want to invite Silvania in Indonesia, that we see a different path, that it's one that blends local culture with institutional support. Can you share how this model in Indonesia works, Silvania, and what makes this institutionalization or mainstreaming model both resilient and inclusive for us to learn more from Indonesia's experience?
Sure, thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. I hope you're still engaged with us since I'm already the fourth speaker. And again, my name is Silvania from Kota Kita, Indonesia. And today I'm excited to share with you the case of Yasinan Forum from West Sumbawa Regency, an example on how participatory and inclusive practices can help mainstream participatory democracy in Indonesia. And before answering Amanda's question, it may be helpful to give a little bit context. So Indonesia's journey towards participatory democracy has been shaped by its political past. So first, during New Order era from 1966 to 1998, the authoritarian rule suppressed the public participation and restricted freedom. But after 1998, the Reformation era ushered in a wave of democratic change. And the second one is the decentralization reform in 1999 paved the way for the stronger community involvement in governance. And the next one is the Musrenbang. Is it a formal forum, multi-level planning forum is designed to be inclusive, but in practice it's often struggle with the time constraints, elite capture, and limited grassroots representation. And today, in a West Sumbawa, we have seen a unique local innovation because Yasinan Forum rooted in a community tradition, so it creates more informal, open space for citizens to engage directly with the decision makers. And it builds trust, strengths, social bonds, and fill the gap left by more formal mechanism. Next slide, please. Yasinan Forum actually stands for Service Forum, equal, inclusive, and reliable. And the Yasinan Forum itself was initiated in 2015 by the mayor of the West Sumbawa and formally established in 2016. And in general, the Yasinan Forum is held 4 times a month, rotating among 64 villages and sub-district. And what actually makes the Yasinan Forum is special is the deep commitment to inclusivity, empathy, and a direct engagement. So value that often missing in conventional government feedback mechanism. The first one is the reason is unlike the digital platform that currently like emerge or formal planning forum, which can be limited in the scope and accessibility, the Yasinan Forum creates a space for marginal groups such as farmer, fisherfolk, elderly, people with disability, and residents from the remote area that often excluded due to the lack of internet access or digital literacy. And the second one is what sets this forum apart is its human-centered and responsive approach. So by gathering the people physically in a welcoming setting and by listening to their story and emotion, and ensuring that all the government officials, including the mayor and head of the agency, are required to attend, the forum sends a strong signal that every voice matters, are required to, every voice matters. So it fosters trust and a sense of collective ownership. And the next one is the further enhanced community involvement. So civil society organization is also involved in this initiative that has been institutionalized through the appointment of community collaboration agents. And these agents play a role in facilitating the process, overseeing all stages of the forum from planning to evaluation. So this forum is not just about collecting complaints, it's about deeply understanding the community aspiration and acting upon them together through mutual cooperation value. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is the result and the impact. Basically, there's two. The first one is it had enhanced the public service quality, and the second one is this initiative already got the international recognition, winning the OGP World Innovation Spotlight Award in Korea 2021. So what is actually the tangible result? Yasinan Forum has delivered real and measurable impact in West Sumbawa. So over 2,300 community complaints have been processed with a remarkable 85% resolution rate, showing like how responsive the local government has become. And one of the most visible results is in the public sanitation sectors. So thousands of toilet and hand washing stations were installed, contribute to the better and the lower disease rates, including when it's in the COVID period. So this forum has also played a major role in improving waste management and clean water access in this area. And beyond the infrastructure, Yasinan also sparked the cultural transformation, where once people are hesitant to speak up, but now it's normal for citizens to openly share, concern, and even critique government action. So it proved that when a community are truly heard, lasting and inclusive progress can be happen. The next one. So this is my last slide. So what is the learning and the challenges? The first one is the use regulation to protect innovation. So by formalizing the grassroots initiative like this, and forum into local laws, their impact can be sustained beyond changes in political leadership. And also the second one is the leverage culture, not just a process. So it is trust-based and informal practices rooted in the local culture can strengthen participation and often work more effectively than the rigid formal system alone. So more importantly, having an innovative approach that stays rooted in local cultural value, social norms, and making it more relatable and sustainable for the community. However, the forum also faces challenge such as limited data management and exclusion of certain group, which affect the equal representation. And these challenges underline the need for more like structure, data system, and better resources allocation to ensure that every voice heard. And despite the obstacle, this forum has successfully catalyzed the significant improvement in public health and sanitation, demonstrating the impact of inclusive government. Thank you, everyone. Back to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Silvania, I appreciate. And now that we've explored rich examples from across regions, so how participation is being embedded, scaled, and sustained in different global regions, we want to turn our attention to what it takes to get there. A lot of you have those questions, and basically we want to know how can government reformers, advocates, and funders help to make the shift from one-off participation to more permanent people-centered governance. Like we say, this is just a conversation that's getting started. Before we go, go to the chat, also share with us very quickly what kind of evidence or tools would you help you make to make the case for institutionalizing participation, because now we are going to talk more about evidence-based data and also the tools that we have. And then I want to invite Sarah, who is covering for Alessandro today, that has been working closely with governments and partners around the world to move from this participation innovation to participation in infrastructure. We have lots of OGP members here at the event today. So based on what OGP is seeing across the partnership, what do you think are the most strategic roles that reformers can play in embedding participation more deeply into governance?
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, as you said, I'm very pleased to be here in the stead of Ale, just to share OGP's perspective. And I'm also really pleased to see so many of the OGP community members here. It's great to see. As an inherently multi-stakeholder platform, you all know, for collaboration, mainstreaming public participation is fairly central to our vision at OGP of ensuring that democracies are strengthened and governments are fit to tackle the challenges that we keep facing. More and more, this idea of rebuilding trust between people and their governments is coming up in conversations with advocates and reformers, both in and outside of governments. I've heard it 5 times, I think, already in today's call. So it's really the core of this. And mainstreaming participation is one of the ways that we begin to operationalize these goals. So as we've said, governments really need to move beyond these one-off processes, because oftentimes the one-off processes are reliant on the patronage or the skills of specific reformers and supporters that might not always have the capacity or finances or ability to push through the institutional processes, the work cultures that may be inhospitable, maybe some capacity gaps, some of these barriers that impact the longevity and impact really of even the most well-intentioned, well-organized one-off programs. So what roles an advocate supporters can play here? I have 2. The first one, you can switch to the next slide. The first one is to push for and champion one of the many different approaches to mainstreaming public participation. And we've heard quite a few examples in the last 4 speakers, but here are some other examples of the common approaches that we're seeing through OGP. So I have 4 examples on the screen, and I want to share a link in the chat as well. So we have a nice blog post written by a colleague that share 7 different ways, and I'll just highlight 3 of them. I've also put okay. So developing legal frameworks is the first one, minimum standards and guidance documents for the conduct of public participation. Croatia has done this through the OGP process by introducing amendments to the rules of procedure to require proposals of draft laws to undergo a consultative process. This is in the legislation. This institutionalizes the public participation, requiring the consultation around draft laws. So another example is institutionalizing specific methods or mechanisms of participation, which Finland is another good example of. They've developed a model of national dialogues that is continuous rather than just a one-off national dialogue. They're continuing to strengthen them. They have a second OGP commitment to improve the inclusion and expand their use and actually utilize the results of these. But again, one of the common approaches to mainstreaming public participation is then to institutionalize what used to be a one-off process. And the last one, I'm going to skip Armenia, but the last one I want to highlight is removing structural barriers to public participation. So oftentimes we see that groups are struggling to participate because of just basic life things like taking time off from a job that maybe doesn't value public participation in political activities. France is defining a citizen participant status framework, which will support people involved in these long-term deliberative initiatives. Some of the ideas they've come up with are potentially through payments or special work leave allowances, with the idea to enable greater accessibility to these kind of mainstreamed public participation programs, greater accessibility and inclusivity, which then in turn enables a more reliable and accurate outcome of the participation process itself. Right. Oh, that's the slide with, okay, the previous examples. Cool, but you'll find all the links to those in the link that I put in the chat, as well as a few more. So do have a look at that blog post. Okay, so although these are very clearly positive steps, we love these, and a role advocates can play is definitely proposing and pushing these, working on contributing to that implementation. At the same time, in a perfect world, they would go further and formalize the link between participatory processes and decision-making, or addressing mainstreaming participation in kind of a more whole of government, holistic, long-term strategic manner. And that means that another role we think that advocates and supporters can play is thinking strategically. So beyond just implementing one of the reforms, thinking more in terms of whole systems and whole programs. So these are things like how the policies need to adapt to incorporate public participation, how the skills and capacities, as well as the institutional cultures and mindsets within government need to adapt to engage the public effectively. And that one, it comes from both civil society and within government itself. I think there's a role for both sides to play there, and especially when they come together, for them to work in tandem on those points. We need to look at what regulations and laws are needed, of course, to provide a solid legal background to these initiatives, as well as just the one-off, and look at where the political leadership needed for these changes can be found. And I know we are in a challenging political context for a lot of countries, but oftentimes political leadership can be found in the civil servants or in folks that have been in governments for longer than maybe the news headlines would have us believe. Okay, so the next slide, please. A program that OGP has been running since 2023 that encourages the OGP community. There are a lot of you there, so I'm sure you've heard of this before. We're encouraging the community to really step up the ambition and the reforms that they're co-creating through OGP's platform. And some of the examples I shared beforehand are also open government challenge submissions. The challenge really recognizes the governments to pass laws and policies that enable higher levels of public participation across the policymaking process. And it highlights the governments that create institutionalized mechanisms for improving general public participation. So it's a great way for governments to be recognized for embedding high quality and inclusive public participation practices within the government, across different sectors, across institutions, across governing bodies. And if you'd like to get involved or you have a program that you'd like to receive recognition for, you can find more information at the link that Ryan just shared. Thank you. And you can always reach out to myself or the People Power team as well. All right, that's it for me. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I really like what you bring, this idea that mainstreaming participation can be a policy, not just a policy shift, but also systems change. And now, as we go to Maria, I want to thank you all for staying. We still have 30 minutes of the event. We are going to have a Q&A after Maria share a little bit of the resources, and also some time for us to have breakout rooms with speakers. So thank you for staying online with us. So now we want to talk, we talked a lot about why participation matters, some insights on how to make, but as you were all saying in the chat, there's a lot of challenges and there's a struggle, I would say, with how to embed practices in a lasting way. It's still a long way for us to work towards that, but there's evidence, tools, and strategy that can help us. Maria, can you walk us through the new resources that are using those insights and others that we, People Power and partners on this webinar, have developed to support reformers?
Thanks a lot, Amanda. I think reformers and practitioners know this pretty well by now, but making a case for change and, especially making the case for mainstreaming and institutionalizing participation is really linked to the data and the evidence, right? So establishing that clear link between the policy problem or the disconnect that policymakers and citizens face in their communities and governments to the direct benefits and impacts that long-term structural citizen participation can offer in that context. So backing from real results, from real case studies of participation helps reformers and advocates argue for permanent, consistent, high quality and iterative structures for participation beyond those one-off processes and pilot programs. Our impact studies on participatory budgeting and citizens' assemblies show tangible improvements in civic engagement and decision-making accountability with real policy outcomes. And this data can be used to connect those benefits and outcomes from participation, not only to advocate for mainstreaming as an alternative, as a transformative alternative to traditional mechanisms of governance, but also as a real solution to policy problems, to the lack of connections and collaborations across governance systems in decision-making, and to decision-making gridlock on complex policy issues. And in building this evidence base for change, we understand that regional data really matters here. So we've tried to pay particular attention to ensuring that our tools and research reflect experiences from the majority world. Most mainstreaming research tends to come from Europe and North America, and this work fills that gap with insights from Latin America, Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe. Our guidance accounts for those political realities and the experience of public participation that varies across regions. So our global data shows a clear trend that participation builds trust and makes for better decisions, which is why, next slide, please. I'm excited to present to you our new evidence library focused on the impact of public participation. This is a library of key findings on how participatory budgeting programs influence trust, equity, and governance outcomes, linking you to curated resources of academic research, impact evaluations, and case studies, which are ready for you to use in your work and advocacy efforts. Our focus right now is participatory budgeting, but this year we're also working to synthesize insights on citizens' assemblies and other methodologies. Next slide, please. So what do you do once you have that evidence? Well, we've built a new tool to help. Across the field, we've heard the same challenge. Reformers know why mainstreaming matters, but struggle with the how to do it. And that's where the new mainstreaming participation playbook comes in. This new module is a practical tool to help you design a reform strategy that's tailored to your context. It's based on the real world experiences that we've heard about today, from Mostar to Bogota, from Kenya to West Sumbawa, and shaped in collaboration with the field. The playbook can help you reflect on your context and your needs to design a reform strategy that directly addresses those needs. It can help you reflect on your enabling environment barriers. It recommends mainstreaming reform pathways, and it provides practical tools and tips for building coalitions and advocating with policymakers. We're in an exciting new frontier, and the playbook encourages you to be creative, to tailor your approach to advocating for and designing your strategy using real case studies and examples. You'll be getting practical tips and resources from reform study, coalition building, and policy advocacy to help you design your long-term approach. So how can you use this module? You can use it to innovate, to combine, build, and adapt reforms to create unique pathways in specific areas of governance or across sectors, departments, and agencies. You can use it as a visioning tool to sketch out a long-term vision of mainstreaming that fits your governance context and participation goals. Or you could use it to help you in your advocacy efforts and to garner support. You can build a reform strategy to share with decision makers in your coalition, or even work with decision makers in your coalition to co-design a strategy. We built this for government reformers seeking to embed participation structurally, and for advocates and practitioners who need clear frameworks to push for change. But we also see it as a valuable tool for movements and coalitions to organize around a shared long-term reform agenda. Next slide, please. And so now we are piloting it. So the Mainstream Participation Accelerator, led by Institute for Public Finance in collaboration with the Open Government Partnership and People Powered, officially kicked off on April 11th. We're working with 23 government reformers and partnerships around the world. We're going to be using the playbook to create and implement a mainstreaming action plan in 6 months. So the playbook is a living resource, and this first pilot is going to help shape that evolution. And the pathways that we've been talking about in this session are descriptions of what has been done, but there's so much more room for innovation in this field, finding new pathways that work specifically for the communities and the political realities that they're being implemented. So we're hoping that you'll be a part of where mainstreaming and by extension the playbook goes next. So why not give the playbook a try yourself and let us know what you think. Yeah, so back to you, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, oh, there's a little bit of the cohort that we just started. And thank you, Maria, for sharing a little bit more about practical tools, data, and strategies to support you all who are here interested in mainstreaming practices in your context and community. So the playbook and this global research are resources that are ready for you to use in your own context, whether you're a former advocate or part of a broader coalition, as Maria said. And if you are ready to go further, there's also an additional resource that I want to share with you. You can apply to mentorship to have one-on-one guided support to use these tools and resources as well, besides, of course, joining the OGP challenge, if it makes sense, and also applying for next cohorts of the MPA, the Mainstream Participation Accelerator. So now I want to stop sharing a little bit the screen so we do Q&A. We have lots of questions, and I really appreciate everybody's input into making this a relevant discussion. Let me see. I want to start with a question that we heard a lot today about the importance of coalitions working together to build momentum for mainstreaming, government, civil societies, organizations, and others. We also received lots of questions in the chat, a lot also when people were registering about political buy-in or engagement of the public, how this can be meaningful and not performative in different contexts. So what kind of partnerships would you say, and this is a question for all of you, whoever wants to start, what kind of partnerships or support do you think are the most essential for turning participation into a lasting practice in different contexts?
I mean, I can start just to break the ice because I think I already answered this question. So I'll just reiterate, especially from the OGP perspective, where we're really focused on co-creating with CSOs and government together in the same room. I think those partnerships are key, both with the civil servants as well as the political level. And I noticed someone in the chat wrote this, which I thought was a great point that I had missed, but it's also worth looking for community leaders and local leaders. It doesn't necessarily have to be the civil servants within government where it's important to create a network here. It's also important to just look for social leaders or economic leaders within a community.
Maria?
Can I follow? Thank you. I think it goes very connected to what Sarah was saying. I think that a lot has been said in the past or has been brought in recent years about multilateral connections and multilateral collaboration. But I feel that I go in the same sense as what Sarah was saying, because I feel that at the moment that we are, and I think that regards to what the last report from VDEM has said about how we are living more in authoritarian regimes in the past few years. I feel that investing in local democracy in the next years will be an important strategy to counter authoritarian or conservative agendas. I don't think this is an answer based on political view or inclination, but I've seen in Latin America in the last couple of years, it is a matter of if citizens will be able to participate in democracy at all. And also more than ever, I think that investing also in how youth and different generations can place dialogues to find common agendas, to find engagement will be key to advance not only with PDD, but the mainstreaming of PDD into social and public culture structure at all.
Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, I think building momentum for mainstreaming generally often has a lot to do with like capitalizing on the existing social momentum around like pressing issues in your context, which often already have movements and organizations and political champions involved in that push. So sometimes making partnerships with those people and organizations and political champions and forming a coalition around like formulating a reform agenda as a response to that pressing issue can be easier than starting from scratch.
Khadim, based on also Senegal, but also Kenya, and other researching sites, how would you frame this part of the importance of political buy-in and overcoming some resistance of stakeholders' engagement towards mainstreaming, since political buy-in is so important for this work?
Yes, as for the reluctance that were shown by some administrative authorities. In the case of Senegal, it was not. It was mainly the administrative authorities, because, as I was saying, they think that they thought that participatory budgeting meant that they would have less power in the decision making. So what they did was the first step was the awareness raising about what participatory budgeting is, and the second step was financed by the state itself. It was a series of training sessions that took place, and about 30 administrative authorities were sensitized and were trained about the participatory budgeting process. And just after that, most of them accepted it, and it was implemented in the municipalities in which they were implemented. If I also come to the first question, meaning the relevant partnership that could be underlined, I can give maybe one beyond the partnership between states, local governments, and civil society. There is also a key role that the media plays. The media, because I saw in some municipalities during the accountability session, meaning the day when the mayor share what has been done, where the budget were allocated, it's broadcast through the radio, the community radio, so that even the citizen that is staying at home can listen, and they can call to the radio and give an idea or give a suggestion to the mayor, or also making their own follow-up, like saying that this was pointed as a need during at the beginning of the process, but it's not achieved. Why? So they can do this through the radio. So I think that this kind of partnership between the local government and the media is also something to point out. Thank you.
Thank you, Khadim. I really appreciate you bringing the media and also all other civil society actors who can play a role on this. And then I think I would like to ask you all, and based on other questions as well, Melina, Silvania, also we are talking, some of the countries, they have a democratic setting that favors the media, for example, but how civil society actors can play a role in a democratic either authoritarian or with some challenges like post-conflict, like in Eastern Europe. So how do you see the role that civil society actors can play when the democratic setting is not as favorable? I would start maybe with Melina from what you've researched in Eastern Europe, and then following up with Silvania.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. Actually, while we did this research in Eastern Europe, we also included the case of Georgia, not only Bosnia and Herzegovina, which was considering the recent developments in Georgia. It was very interesting to hear from civil society organizations how crucial their role actually was in also in implementing citizens' assemblies as democratic innovations, because citizens actually had a more trustful relationship with civil society organizations rather than public authority representatives. Due to their previous work and the inclusion of citizens in different educational sessions, training, and so on, they were very important, a trust-building factor in this hierarchy. I mean, in the case of Georgia, for example, the international community was also very involved, and I mean, it was an initiating factor. So this cooperation with the national government and the international community was backed up by the civil society, which actually worked in the field. So they were purposely, of course, gathered, and their capacities were strengthened and built in order to give more credibility to process and trust from citizens. So I would say extremely important role of civil society organizations, as in the case of Mostar, which was really interesting how youth, the target, the group that is usually maybe less interested and disengaged, in this sense, they were interested to take part in cooperation with the local civil society organization that works in the field and on a daily basis communicates with them. So yes, I would definitely say that they have an extremely important role.
Thanks, Melina. Silvania?
Yeah, so in this case of the Yasinan Forum in West Sumbawa, like the strong partnership between government and the civil society have been essential, because civil society actors embedded in the process of the Yasinan Forum to ensure the accountability. And what make it really work is the mutual commitment to co-governance, where local government open space, not just for dialogue, but also genuinely collaboration, especially with the civil society. As I mentioned before, that one of the key support system in this initiative is by institutionalizing the community collaboration agent, which consists of the civil society who bridge the grassroots participation and government action. So yeah, civil society is really essential in the participatory democracy initiative.
Thank you, Silvania. We are almost coming to the time, so I want to make sure, let me share the screen quickly, that we have time for breakout rooms so people can ask questions directly to speakers. Unfortunately, the Q&A was a little shorter than we planned, but we really appreciate your questions, and the recordings and the slides will also be sent to you who registered for the event. So now this breakout rooms we will open to you for 20 minutes. Not more than this, because we're already extending a little bit, 15 to 20 minutes. And room 1, Maria and I will be talking about the resources and tools that are open to your use. Room 2, Alessandro, Sarah, and Melina will talk a little bit about support to government reformers and other questions. And then Khadim and Maria Luiza and Silvania will be on room 3 about to talk about Global South data insights that we also talked a little bit more today. Also, Melina can share and Sarah a little bit of data insights from the cases that they shared as well. So can we open the breakout rooms? And before we go, I want to thank you all after the breakout rooms event will end. So I want to thank you all